Are you kidding me? I'm looking for a draw. He finds a way to get a victory there.
This game is special, and it's especially good because Magnus Carlsen's opponent playing with the white pieces is Ian Nepomniatchtchi. This guy is a two-time World Chess Championship challenger in the last 3 years. He's been a top 5 player in the world for ages, a blitz beast. And yet, when he goes e4 against Magnus Carlsen, Magnus, the chess goat, goes knight f6, Alekhine's defence, goading that pawn forward. Jan duly pushes, and then Magnus does not go knight d5. The move played in about 28,000 games, Magnus goes knight back to g8, the so-called Brooklyn variation, only seen in 240 games in the chess.com database here. That's less than 1%. Why? Because it's horrendous. Jan goes d4. He's fully occupied the centre. He's had 1, 2, 3 extra moves than Magnus. Magnus has still got his entire army on the starting squares. And yet, look what happens in this incredible game. It's the Speed Chess Championship, played about 3 months ago, the quarterfinals, and it's chess gold. So Magnus Carlsen goes d6, trying to undermine that centre. We now get knight f3 played, and still Magnus doesn't play in the most principled manner, which would be taking, then knight recaptures best, and you bring the knight back out into the game. No, Magnus goes c6. He pushes another pawn, still not developing pieces. We get knight c3 from Jan, and now bishop g4. Again, not the top move here. Normally you're taught to develop knights before bishops. They're short range pieces, they're trying to jab, so you've got to get them into the game. These bishops, they're long range snipers. So bishop e2 now played. Finally, Magnus develops a knight off the starting rank and doesn't retreat it, right? We get takes on d6 now, pawn recaptures, castles, knight gf6, and now Jan should go d5 here. Plant a pawn on d5, sit on this one's head, keep this bishop a bit locked down. But what he does is h3. It's a bit soft because Magnus can take here, bishop recaptures, and d5. Suddenly, he's getting a half playable position. We get rook e1 check, bishop e7, bishop f4, and now a nice manoeuvre. Magnus doesn't casually castle, he goes knight f8 first. And after queen d3, he sits the knight on this wonderful e6 square, kicks back the bishop, or forward I should say, castles the king, and listen to this from Robert Hess.
I wish I could put my knight to f6 and back to g8 on my first 2 moves and get a position like this. I don't know how he does it.
How does Magnus do it? The position's half playable, we're almost back to level after 14 moves. So knight e2 now played, spinning round to the king side, wanting to attack, and sometimes you unleash that c-pawn on the opponent. Bishop d6 now from Magnus, challenging this strong piece. Jan carries on with his plan, looking at this f5 square, and Magnus now takes. Change the pawn structure. This looks dangerous with this one spearheading the attack, but Jan doesn't play in the best way. Centralizing this rook was good, preparing c4, that kind of thing. But he charges forward with knight f5. Really logical idea, of course. You're looking here, you're looking around the king. This is bullet chess, by the way, but they do get a second back per move called increment. Clock time's on the left here. But after g6, actually, how do you make inroads into the black position? Because if you jump here, which looks so juicy, there's a tactical shot. Do pause if you want to look for it. This is bread and butter for these guys. Knight takes on e5. And if rook recaptures, queen takes the knight here. And equally, you've no time to start taking here, hitting the queen, because your own queen's under fire. Black comes out on top. So because Jan can't, Jan, that's a good way to say it. Jan can't jump there. He jumps here with check. And now after king g7, although it looks dangerous, he's getting driven back here. Now if you go for queen d2 or queen e3, well then there's queen g5, and still eventually the knight gets forced back, but in even better circumstances. So Jan retreats voluntarily, but now pawn h5. Magnus thrusts that one forward, kicks the knight back further, and coming to h2 is actually best. Miserable square, but at least the rook defends the pawn. However, knight e3 played, allows the pawn to drop, but here's Jan's sneaky point. He wants to kill Magnus's monarch, and so he springs forward with knight to f5 check. And this whole sequence from here is truly remarkable in a bullet game. So Magnus is king under fire. Now if you take that knight, natural idea, okay, you shouldn't be allowed to jump there. Well, white takes the knight here. This is the point. And although white's a pawn down, these ones are terrible, of course. You're going to win that pawn back doing well. So taking, not so good. Say you step somewhere with the king. Well, now white takes for free, an entire piece up. You have to take to restore material, not good. So what does Magnus do? To the surprise of the commentators, he goes king to f6.
Is there king f6 there? No way.
How is this possible to bring the king out of the cubbyhole in bullet chess? So risky, especially because Jan has got this move. Rook takes on e5. Now that is an awesome one. Dragging the king out further because Magnus takes here.
He goes for it. He wins king of the hill.
What a decision from Magnus.
Look at it, stranded in the center of the board, and surely there's a way to kill this king now. But it's not quite working, you know, a killer blow. Because if you go queen c3 check, well, the king can even take the knight and it starts scurrying back one way or another. There isn't quite the blow. So rook e1 check, played by Jan. It's the top move. Now Magnus goes to run away with king to f6. How to continue the attack? Well, knight d4. Nice move. Huge pressure here. Also tempting Magnus to take, try and simplify. He's under fire. But guess what? You just blundered mate in 3. The king's got to go somewhere, and this is one way to checkmate. Do a different. But that's why you cannot touch this knight on d4. So instead, we get rook e8 played to cover the knight on e6. And now here, Jan goes queen to c3. Best move, x-raying this king, and the follow-up move from Magnus is truly stupendous. So what would you play here? You know, you're on the black side of things, and if you love these Magnus games as much as I do, wacky openings, then smash subscribe, because I've got so many more games just like this coming this month.
Right, so let's see what Magnus is going to do. This looks like a nice little move by Jan. I don't see how this king is getting out of here.
I don't either. I think I would just swap knights on d4 and try to make that draw if it is indeed a draw.
Well done if you spotted the only winning move in this position. It's queen to b6. What an incredible resource.
Oh, queen b6. Robert, knight takes e6, d4, knight takes, rook takes e1, and then you take the knight. What a find.
That is a beautiful variation.
It looks impossible because if you take here, which Jan didn't play, opening a discovered check, king can't take, the knight supported by the rook, well then there's this phenomenal resource of pawn to d4, hitting this queen. So what do? Well, say you take the pawn with check. Now you can swap the ladies, knight takes back, but guess what? Your rook's now hanging since the queen left the c3 square. What an amazing geometry. What a find. You're a double exchange up, it's lost. So coming back here, after takes, d4, what if you don't take with the queen? What if you take with the knight? Well, same problems. Swap the rooks, now the knight drops. You're still an exchange up, great position, just amazing how good this d4 move is.
Queen b6 there? Are you kidding me? I'm looking for a draw. He finds a way to get a victory there.
There's nothing to do once that move comes on the board. So Jan, in desperation, goes for rook takes on e6. Check. Now we see pawn recaptures. Queen e3 played, because by the way, there's still no good discoveries. You know, you can try something like this, but then you get things like this, and the rook activates. Again, you're a double exchange down. The attack's not breaking through. Queen's covered from the checks and everything. So here we see Queen e3 tried, but now Pawn e5, and Jan resigns the game with barely a second left on his clock. Magnus has got 30. Why did he resign? We'll say knight b3, queen captures, pawn captures, you're dead in the water. Double exchange down. What a game by Magnus Carlsen. And if you enjoyed this one and want to see another incredible Carlsen game, check out the video on screen, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.